Hey everybody, it is Josh from AirOps. I do content and SEO here, and I'm really excited to be joined by Ross Simmonds. How are you, Ross, today?
I am great. Thrilled to be here. Excited to chat about some of my favorite topics today. So thanks for having me back.
Thanks everybody for joining us. We do have an important topic to talk about today because this is probably the number one thing that I get asked about a lot. Maybe the second thing, to be honest, but it's Reddit. How do I appear in Reddit? What's happening with Reddit? Ross joined us a few months ago and he is back with some new stuff for us to think about. So we're going to dive right in. Ross from Foundation, and he is also head of distribution.ai. He is also an author, which he has to his right, my left on his screen there. Everyone check out his book. He is like the master of not only Reddit, but also distribution. So it is always great to check out his stuff. A privilege to have him here with us. So what are we going to be diving into? We are going to be talking about Reddit, but first, if you want to thrive in AI search, we have some workflows and packages to really help you, including one for Reddit in AirOps that I'll be sharing with you a little bit later on. But get this exclusive package. You can scan the QR code there or email us at growth@airops.com. Put Reddit in the subject line, and you will get some new workflows for AI search in your brand, Reddit insights on our prioritization dashboard, and then a strategy to refresh your content like Webflow, Lightspeed, and lots of other companies as well. So hit us up at growth@airops.com with Reddit in the subject line. And we'll have more details of that here in a little bit. Thank you, Maria, for jumping in there with that too. Okay, let me set up the agenda and then Ross is going to share. Lots of great companies have joined us in the past, and we are talking today about myths, missteps, and market shifts in AI search. Lots to know there, how Google's shift to destination search has changed. And then what does AI actually cite? We're going to get into some of that. And then Reddit and community as a new distribution mode. We're also going to be talking about content creation and then take your questions at the end. We've also had a lot of great questions come in so far. So lots of engaged folks here. So Ross, I am going to, yes, let you take it away.
I love it. Awesome. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Folks, I'm looking forward to diving into one of my favorite topics today, which is Reddit. I've been a Redditor for a very long time, and I want to continue with Josh's approach where we keep the chat going. So for folks who are here, how long have you been on Reddit? Is there anyone who is new? If you're new or haven't touched it, just say I'm new. If you've been on Reddit for a while, throw in your cake day. How long have you been on there? How long have you been using Reddit as a platform? I'd love to better understand who we have here today. And if there's some deep Redditors or if a lot of folks are newish to the platform in general, 5 years, maybe more. I see some 12 years,
10 years,
personal
yeah.
10, some new, tried for a month. Okay, there's a lot. Great. I'm excited because we have a good, decent group. I wrote my first blog post on Reddit probably 12 years ago. It was back in 2015 where I wrote a book on Reddit called Cracking the Reddit Code. And most recently, Reddit has finally lived up to its mantra and idea and concept of being the front page of the internet. So today we're going to be diving into that. But before we do, I need to start by addressing a lie that we've all been told, a lie that a lot of marketers have heard preached at the top of their lungs by gurus, by folks on LinkedIn that I really want to debunk and really put to the wayside. And we've got a good group here today, and I really hope that all of us can leave believing and agreeing that these myths need to die. One of the lies that I don't want to spend too much time on was one that I was told as a young kid, which was the idea that if you swallow bubblegum, it will stay in your stomach for 7 years. That wasn't true. My parents lied to me. Another lie that I was told at a very young age was if you happen to turn on the dome light, you could get arrested if your parents are driving around in the dark and the dome light's on. That was a lie. My dad told me this one is not true. I literally thought this was a thing until probably 3 years ago when my daughter, she hit the dome light and we're driving around. I'm like, Aaliyah, you can't do that, right? As a parent, I get it, but it was not real. This was not a real thing. There's so many of these that we have been told by people that we love, people that we care about, and even gurus and some people on this call today that are with you have probably lied to you. They've lied to you by saying things like copy and pasting AI content, you're just going to fail. If you use AI on social media, you're going to fail. If you use AI with your blog post, you're going to fail. Google can see it, you're going to lose. It is all a lie. Now, I'm not somebody who is very much caught up in, okay, let's just trust our feelings of this. I believe you have to do research. So I did some research for all of you. I found this site. It's called CNET. Generates millions of visits every single month. And it just so happens that they produced a lot of content using AI. And I was like, okay, let's figure out if this AI generated content actually led to any results, or if this AI slop criticism that we see on LinkedIn every single day is actually holding weight. So I went in and I decided that I was going to research it. And what happened? CNET had a whole bunch of errors. They had a whole bunch of issues, mistakes. The robots were making problems. And people seen this and people applauded. Humans were excited. Humans forever, writers forever, for humans, fingers on keyboards. We are going to last. Great. This was the response to the market. Media them and said that they had to shut it down, and agreed and said, we're going to shut it down. However, I believe you need to do research. You need to understand whether or not this is feelings or facts. So I became my inner Sherlock homeboy who loves research, who loves data. In my book, Create Once, Distribute Forever, I talk about this as my second persona when I'm really feeling like this. I'm a geek, I'm a nerd. So I did research through my Sherlock homeboy to figure out what was going on behind the scenes. And it turns out that blog, that website, I extracted all of the AI generated pieces and they generate 5.1 million annual visits every single month, right? Or every year, 2,400 backlinks. The value of that traffic is $1.3 million. You would have to spend $16 million every year to capture what they did from an AI lens. This is powerful stuff, folks. It's absolutely wild. So when I look at things like this and I look at the market today, I believe truly that there is something AI generated content if you put a human in front of it. If the human does the editing, if the human provides expertise and you take into consideration a few other things. But I do believe that AI is causing a little bit of havoc in all of our worlds. Whether you look at algorithms on Reddit, on LinkedIn, on X, there's no question that we are going through a chaotic time. You look at Google. Google is becoming a destination. You ask Google what are the preferences, and you're going to no longer go to a blog post and read the links. You're going to get the answer right there. Google has become a destination. For years, we were told, write blog posts, create landing pages, and Google will send you traffic. Over the last 12 months, we've seen a significant decoupling of clicks and impressions on the back of the rollout of Google AI overviews. There has been a shift. And when you look at the market and you ask them, folks, how are you feeling about all of this change? How are you feeling about this shifts in the market? There's a lot of marketers saying that they feel like their role is at risk. This is happening every single day. We're seeing more and more marketers under the gun around, and we're seeing job descriptions like this, where they're saying that you need to have PPC experience, email marketing experience, social media experience, 6 years experience, 40K, right? The industry is at turmoil because of all of this chaos, right? When we look ahead, I like to look back. Back in 2019, 2018, 2020, I was telling people, telling marketers that Google is becoming a destination, that we need to recognize that Google is no longer just a place that sends us traffic, but it is trying to be a destination for content. I spoke on stages, screamed at the top of my lungs, folks, Google is becoming a destination. We need to take pages out of the book of organizations like Disney and try to create entire worlds around our content that doesn't just live on our site, but lives on YouTube, on Reddit, on Quora, on Facebook, on all of these different platforms. And now we fast forward and we see that the most cited domains on Google AI overviews are sites like Quora, Reddit, LinkedIn.com, YouTube, etc. And we say, I wish back in 2018, someone would have told us that we should be using these platforms. So here I am again in 2025, asking you please to consider these channels as not just a place to scroll, but as a place, as a marketer that we should be using and that we should be investing in. And to do this, I believe we need to go back to the basics, right? Marketers, we have gone way too far in this idea of content marketing, meaning just blog posts. That if we want to be successful, we need to write more blog posts, we need to create more landing pages, we just need to create. Instead, I want us to go back to the fundamentals of marketing and recognize that content marketing isn't just a content industry. It's a content marketing industry, and marketing is rooted in research, distribution, optimization, the psychology of humans, and storytelling. If we can embrace the fundamentals and go back to the basics, I think that our craft will be safe. I think that our industry will be safe, and the turmoil that we feel will be relieved. But it starts with research. Using tools like AirOps to dive in deeper to understand the way that your situation looks in this new age of LLMs. Diving in deep to understand the social behaviors of your audience and your customers. Diving deep into the number of backlinks that certain assets are generating, and then intentionally creating content that moves the needle. But it's not just blog posts. It could be videos, it could be infographics, it could be webinars, it could be anything that adds value to the life of your audience. And then distributing those stories on the channels in which they're spending time. Most marketing engines, most marketing teams start and end with creation. They create and then they say, what's our next blog post? We need to create a landing page. What's our next landing page? And that is what they do over and over again. What I want to encourage you to do is to not just think about creation, but to think about distribution as well. How can you spread your stories through newsletters, through YouTube, through Reddit, through sales? How can you optimize that content after you publish it? How can you ensure that the content that you create doesn't just live and die the day in which it's published, but has a lifetime of life? And now, amidst the rise of AI, I think we need to sprinkle AI on top of all, on your creation phase, your distribution phase, and the optimization phase. How do you make that happen? Let me talk you through some clear examples of this. So I've been on this, I think a lot of people are on this kick right now. I don't know if it's a fad, but electrolytes are like blowing up everywhere. Everybody's putting electrolyte powders in their juices, their waters, makes us feel healthy when we're sitting at our desks. So I've been doing research on it. And I used ChatGPT. I said, hey, I want you to do research on the top 10 brands selling electrolyte powders and summarize in a spreadsheet for me all of the differences in these products, right? And then in the matter of seconds, I get that directly in a spreadsheet. Why does this matter? It matters because you as a marketer, you as a creator can now at your fingertips do research that would have taken weeks or days at a time to complete in the matter of minutes. It took 3 minutes and 39 seconds to get met with a spreadsheet that was filled with all of these ideas, this concepts, and this work would have taken hours, if not weeks before, right? You can analyze investor reports now better than ever before. You can take the reports that you are generating from different products that you use. If you are going after an RFP, if you're in the agency world, you can upload investor reports and use that to inform and support your own communication and your dialogue. As you are developing your marketing plan for the quarter, you upload some of the code would change things. And in the matter of, again, ideas and valuable stories directly from this. You can take marketing reports that you would generate from PDFs and tools like Moz or whatever, upload those to LLMs and have them analyze the report to give it to you on a bumper sticker. Just tell me quickly what I need to do based off of this report and based off of this audit. Or if you've hired a consultant and you don't speak the language that they're talking, because they're talking about all kinds of acronyms and things you don't understand, you can ask again an LLM to give you a second set of eyes. All of this can happen in the matter of minutes now. This is the power of these tools. And I again believe that all of us should unlock and unleash our own Sherlock Homeboys across the board. And what I mean by this is that it's not just about using it to get research up front from data, et cetera, but our differentiator amidst the rise of AI is us as humans having two things. One, taste, and the second thing is having the ability to understand what makes humans tick. So if we can ensure that we have taste and we can use research to look for the insights to it that we can apply with our taste, we can create stories, we can create messages and content and relevant activities that lead to better outcomes for our businesses. So for example, I want us to imagine for a second. I want all of you to pretend, go on a journey with me. I just launched a new YouTube channel. I just launched a new YouTube channel that is called Rossi's Gardening Channel. I'm going to be a gardener. In my gardening YouTube channel, I'm going to create content about different things that people who garden care about. But I'll be honest, I don't know much about this space. So I'm going to go to YouTube and I'm going to type in some queries around gardening, and then I see this video in the bottom left. It says easy basil propagation. Now, at the time, I don't even know what propagation means, but that's interesting. It has 350,000 views. What in the world could that be? So then I go to a keyword research tool and I type in propagating, and it turns out there's a lot of people looking for information around propagating things all the time. Propagating rosemary, propagating lavender, propagating aloe. Cool. I know personally that I've been using eye masks and putting lavender on them and having the best sleeps of my life. So let's go a little bit deeper into this lavender world for a second. And it turns out that people are looking for this stuff all the time, right? So I start to see that people are looking for propagating lavender from cuttings, propagating lavender from plants, all of these things. This is interesting to me. I'm not using a tool to do this research. I'm using my natural curiosity to understand the space and understand what people want. And then I realize that while the keyword research tools told me that only 300 people were looking for it, these videos are generating hundreds of thousands of views. That's the game. That's the industry. That's marketing, where we are not relying on tools as our crutch, but we are augmenting ourselves with the tools to start our journey of discovery and then allowing that to inform our approach. And when I look at this with taste, I can say these videos have a lot of views, but these videos also have horrible thumbnails. There might be an opportunity for me to tap into that. So a lot of folks look at this and they say, okay, that's cool. That's great. That makes sense. Where else can we go from here? I think you need to do research. The same way that you need to do research on these channels to figure out where you go, you should do research into review sites. There's a lot of sites out there that have been dinged significantly over the last few months by the algorithm. Specifically, there's sites like calculator.net that are still thriving. But when you look at sites like g2.com, a site that a lot of B2B brands, a lot of organizations are investing tons and tons of money into, their traffic is not what it was back in 2023. When you look at sites like Trust Radius, the same thing. Back in 2023, they had a significant amount of traffic, nearly 800,000 visits annually. Today, it's down to 90 a month, right? Capterra, same thing. They have 1.5 million. Now it's down to 545,000. You look at softwareadvice.com, same thing, right? These review sites are losing and lots of traffic because of the rise of Google AI overviews. And what this means to me and you as a marketer is that before we make our decisions, we need to invest in research to inform what we do. So let me take this a step further. Most recently, AirOps put out some great research where they found that 63% of all citations on ChatGPT include a Reddit URL. That is wild. We continue to invest hundreds of thousands of dollars into sites of the past without recognizing the state of the decisions being made today, where 66% of the citations are directly on Reddit. In Perplexity, 75% of all citations include Reddit or YouTube. But again, we spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on these review sites that don't generate as much traffic as they used to, but Reddit and YouTube are getting all the citations, right? I think for all of us as marketers, we need to follow the data and follow the money, and we need to do the research to inform our approach. Since 2023, we've been tracking Reddit versus other domains in the SERP. And we have found that Reddit has surpassed nearly all review sites in bottom of funnel transactional queries, but most brands still continue to sleep on the fact that Reddit is this channel worth investing in. And when you wonder why this is the case, it's important that you understand and that you think about the fact that, the fact that Google is partnering with Reddit is influencing a lot of this. And Chris called out the question. It's important that you verify this. 100%. Every single organization is going to have different bottom of funnel queries that you care about. The transactional queries that you care about are going to differ from a CRM tool, but you're going to differ from a HVAC software tool. They're all going to be different, but that is where your Sherlock Homeboy methodology comes into play, because there is no question that you can't deny the data that those sites have lost a ton of traffic, yet we still continue to invest in them rather than these other channels that have started to take over the bottom of the funnel, right? YouTube is being cited more often by the LLMs, except in ChatGPT, than most platforms. And this shouldn't feel like a surprise. Didn't see, but I could hear and feel that some of you are probably like, YouTube doesn't matter to me. YouTube, why are we talking about YouTube? Who cares about this propagating lavender thing? YouTube is not relevant for my audience. We're in B2B. Yet we're seeing YouTube show up more being cited in the LLMs than ever before. Google happens to own this little website called YouTube that it bought for like billions of dollars, and it happens to use the transcriptions of those videos when somebody's using Google AI mode or Gemini to give them an answer when they're saying what is the best software, what is the best B2B solution I should use. They're using YouTube videos to inform these answers. But sure, you can continue to sleep on YouTube, right? Or you can continue to sleep on LinkedIn as well, where you can see 20% of citations include a LinkedIn source in Google AI mode, right? That's less than 10%, and it's less than 10% on other LLMs, right? But we can continue to not embrace these channels and invest in some of the traditional ones. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't use YouTube. I'm not saying you shouldn't use Trust Radio. I'm not saying that at all. Don't send out any tweets or LinkedIn posts saying, Ross Simmonds said that I shouldn't be on these channels. That's not what I'm saying at all. But what I'm saying is, why aren't we doing the research to guide our decisions around where we allocate budget and align it with where the actual influence is actually happening? Capterra generates 1.5% of all citations for consideration related to SaaS queries in the LLMs. That's a lot, but at the end of the day, it's still lower than channels like Reddit. YouTube is being cited by the LLMs, except ChatGPT. And this strategy that I talked about, folks, is very cut and dry. When you start to see YouTube videos showing up and YouTube as a potential strategy, maybe you should create them. Maybe you go to ChatGPT and you start to actually create thumbnails on the back of these YouTube videos that you're creating. And you might look at that and be like, okay, that's cool. That's great. That makes sense. But what in the world? Why would you wear a Coogee sweater when you're talking about that? You can ask ChatGPT to make that change too, right? This is the power of the AI tools that we all have at our fingertips. You can then upload that directly into a channel like HeyGen, and in HeyGen, it will actually create a synthetic version of yourself where it talks and says the things that you want it to say, right? This is the power of these channels. You can now use AI to take that same video and translate it into Mandarin, into French, into German, into Italian, and more, the same way that you can do that across every single language. I encourage you to dive in deep into the best practices that are happening on YouTube, because it all connects back to the way that you're using these channels. If you have old video content, optimize it, improve the thumbnails, right? And if you're thinking about how can we execute these things, how could we do these things, then don't be afraid to go out and find creators, influencers, and marketers who can support that development, right? Because content marketers don't just write blogs, they create content that actually aligns with demand. And it's important that we reverse engineer the content assets that rank. It's important that we embrace that Sherlock homeboy inside of us to create great content. And if you're not sure, okay, what should go into this? In our analysis, we have found that these 6 things are the key. High editorial standards, multimedia assets, double elite content, so expertise, experience, authority, and trust, reads like a human blog post, having interlinks throughout to old content that you produce, and then, of course, ensuring that you have elements of disclosure. All right, so I want to dive into this. 63% of all citations on ChatGPT include a Reddit URL. But most brands, again, are still afraid of using these platforms. I believe that when it comes to Reddit, you need to embrace the remix. What does that mean? On Reddit, every single day, there are these things called subreddits. And inside of these subreddits are communities of people who care about things that are relevant to you. So let's say, for example, you are in the MSP space. You have a software that targets managed service providers. There is a subreddit called reddit.com/r/MSPs. So you can go into that channel. You can go into the MSP subreddit and you can sort the content by top posts. When you do that, you're achieving what I like to call content market fit. The top posts in a subreddit are the posts that the users, the audience, the customers that you want to reach in that subreddit care the most about. So go and find the subreddits where your audience cares about, and clearly that's going to be content that matters. Or do an analysis to see what threads in Reddit are showing up as being cited the most in the LLMs and start to reverse engineer that content. You want to find the content in reddit.com that also ranks for high priority keywords like New York pizza or whatever it may be that's relevant to your industry, and reverse engineer why this content ranks. And what you'll find is oftentimes it's because it sounds and reads just like a great blog post, or it's a question that is filled with high value answers that align with a bottom of funnel query or question that also could be great for a blog post. You want to take that and then turn it into content that aligns with your brand. So I found this post that ranked for New York pizza many moons ago. And I was like, okay, cool. Let's take this concept and this idea and apply it to Halifax, small province on the east coast of Canada, and let's see what happens. What happens was it got 40,000 views, hundreds of upvotes, hundreds of comments, people saying thank you for this piece because I took inspiration from something that worked in one region and I applied it to the next. The same thing can happen for your business. But you're probably wondering, how in the world do I get started? What should be my account structure if I do make the decision to move on to Reddit? There are 3 key types of accounts that you should have as a business on Reddit. 1 is a branded subreddit. 2 is your branded user account. And then 3 is a brand representative on Reddit. So let me dive into each of these for a second. So the first one is a branded subreddit. A branded subreddit is a community where people talk about your organization, your software, etc. So if you go to reddit.com/r/monarch money as an example, or r/sonos or r/bitly, you're going to find brands that have created subreddits that are tailored to their customers, where people ask questions about the product, where the brand has direct access to their customers. You might even find that a subreddit already exists about your business. It's not an ideal situation, but it is a real possibility. In those cases, what we have done with a few partners is we've actually reached out directly to the mods and have been able to help them get ownership or a mod added to that subreddit so they can have some influence there. One of the other benefits, this is some research that we haven't published yet, but that we've been diving into, is that we're seeing that brands who have their own subreddit, if they start to create content on their own subreddit that aligns with keywords, we're starting to see that content influence both the LLMs and the SERP more frequently. So I do believe it is very important to try to create/own your own subreddit ASAP. Now, there's one other thing that you want to consider, and that is your brand account. You do want to own reddit.com/u/brand. So this is your brand's name. If you have a trademark, reddit.com will actually help you get that because for many brands and organizations, somebody else created it. That's unfortunate, but you can get it back, especially if it's an inactive account. It's very easy to do. You reach out to Reddit, you can do a trademark claim, have to show the paperwork, but they will help you get that. Once you have that account, this account is intended to be a mod of your branded subreddit. It's the neutral account that thanks people, that is great, happy customer support. It is there to engage in a positive setting. But then you're going to have a brand user account. And this would be Ross from Foundation. This would be Josh from AirOps. This would be one of those accounts like Keith from Sonos, which is a great example. I'd encourage you to check out. It's an individual personified for the business. And that account is going to be human. That account is going to go around into different subreddits and add value, build trust, build karma, and establish relationships. It's going to have no issues going into a conversation where somebody is asking a question about something that's not even directly associated with your product, but chiming in and adding value, because that's what Redditors want. Redditors want 4 types of content: educational content, engaging content, entertaining content, or empowering content. If you can create content that falls into these 4 categories on Reddit, you will very likely not get banned, not get blocked, not get kicked off of the channels. But when you create this content, you do need to understand a few things. 1, educational content on Reddit does look like this, where you're seeing a lot of links. You're seeing links all throughout this, but the person, Lazy Mentors, isn't getting kicked off. No Redditors is getting mad. No one's saying, get out of here. We don't want you here. They are happy with this resource. Why? Because it is valuable. It is valuable in the sense that they're saying, these are some pieces that are helpful. These are the best books that I've read. This is a blog post worth reading. They're very smart because they included a link to Foundation. So this is the type of stuff that Redditors want to see. If you can provide value, no one will get mad at you. Engaging content. This is where you're just responding. So don't view Reddit as a platform where you can just preach. You want to engage. If someone's asking a question about your product, answer them. If somebody's asking a question about your industry, answer them. If someone's asking for the best podcast for somebody in your industry or your niche, respond to them. You don't need to have a podcast, but tell them 4 other podcasts that are in your industry and in your niche that might be relevant to them. That is how you add value and start to get these things called upvotes, which is karma. This is the way to approach it. And then the third, entertaining. Entertaining content, memes, jokes, all of those things work really well on Reddit. And then you also want to empower people. So celebrate Redditors, celebrate the community. One of my best tips for marketers going into Reddit is to always lean heavily into the side of, hey, thank you so much, subreddit, for giving me so much value over the years. I want to give value back to you. This makes them feel great. So when you come in, you can add value to them back. There's a tool called SparkToro that I encourage folks to check out as well when you're doing this type of research on Reddit. What you're able to do is type in your domain. So you can type in the domain of your website and it will tell you what YouTube channels you should consider for best in class, because these are what YouTube channels your audience is subscribed to. It will tell you what podcasts your audience subscribes to, and it will even tell you which subreddits your audience are members of. So this gives you a cheat code to be able to do 2 things. 1, know which Redditors you should run ads in, which Reddits, subreddits you should be engaging in, interacting with, all of those different things. But it also shows you the subreddit that you should go into and sort the content by top posts. Because when you go into this subreddit and you sort the content by top posts, you're going to again start to see that content that is actually the most valuable to the community, what content they actually cared about. So Get Motivated as a subreddit is dedicated to people who want to be motivated. So if you want to create a brand that is all about people who want to get motivated, think fitness or something like that, you can sort the content by top posts and start to see the trends around the types of stories that people care about. And then once you understand what your people care about, you can start to give that to them, right? This is the best way to add value on these channels. Like I said, I've been a Redditor since early days. I wrote my book on Reddit back in like 2013, 2015, I forget, but it was a long time ago. Had no hair on my face. It was a long time ago. Redditors hate marketers. Let's be transparent. They don't want you there. But if you go in with one intention, which is to be helpful, to add value, to engage transparently and say, this is a part of my job, but I'm here to be helpful, then you will win. There's a lot of marketers out there that are doing a shady way on Reddit where they're just like pretending to be a random person, Joe Blow, talking about how great this product is. That's not the play. The play is to be transparent about who you are, add value to people, give ridiculous amounts of value, and you'll be okay. You might get banned from a couple subreddits because they just don't want marketers there, period. But if you go in with those intentions, you are following the best practices for Reddit as a business. Now, how do you distribute content? 1, I do believe that you should distribute your content on Reddit, just like in this example where you have links, etc. But you have to make it subtle. You can't include all your links over and over again. People love checking your Reddit history to see what you're all about and what you've been doing there. So you do want to make sure that you are actually sharing valuable URLs on Reddit and incorporating other people's as well. But you also want to think outside of Reddit. Again, remember what I was talking about earlier. Yes, Reddit, key platform. Yes, it's a channel that I want you to invest in. But when you press publish on all of these pieces in 2026, 2027 and beyond, don't just think the content lives and dies the day it goes live. You want to be thinking about how you can repurpose it. That thread that you create on X can be a blog post. That blog post can become a podcast. You can take a podcast and turn it into clips. You can take those clips and turn them into stories and graphics and visuals. You can amplify them and run ads on these different channels. You can plug them into subreddits. You can do all of those different things, but repurpose your content, folks. This is what I did with my podcast to get 100,000 downloads. This is what I've done on some of the most hostile sites in the world, like Hacker News, like Reddit.com. You will find content from Foundation all over these platforms because we recognize that if you go in with the intention of adding value, you will not get kicked off. People are okay with it. So when we start to think about it that way, where we're focused on the value, distribution becomes way easier, right? And it doesn't end there. If you're starting to produce a lot more content, what I would encourage you to do is also to think, okay, how can we use our old content that might already have content market fit at scale? Can I take all of your best LinkedIn posts? Let's say you're off X. Can we take all of our best X posts and start to repackage them into new social posts for Instagram? Can we take those and say, ChatGPT, I want you to take all of these posts, create similar ones that are 280 characters or less. ChatGPT gives it to you. You say, could you please turn that into a spreadsheet? And then you download it. You always say please and thank you to your AIs. Then you take that spreadsheet, you upload it through the data function directly in Canva, and you're going to create images at scale so you can distribute the stories that once lived on X on different platforms to make your life easier in the upcoming year. You might look at this and be like, that image is weird. I don't want to just have a bunch of hands on somebody's shoulder. Like that doesn't fly with me. So maybe you say, I want to find a new image. So you go and you find this type of a graphic and you're like, I noticed on Reddit in that our Get Motivated subreddit, there was a lot of images and I want to create visuals that I can upload at scale to our Get Motivated. So you're using your motivational quotes, whatever it might be, to engage people, to entertain them, to make them feel good, and you want to have a new image with it. So you say mid-journey, I want you to create a few different visuals just like this, and then you turn those into visuals that might look a little bit different. For me, I might say throw some melanin in, and then we get all of these images. Then I can take that back over to Canva, and then at scale, in the matter of 20 minutes, I have a series of different images that are able to be created on the back of it, right? So when you get that, you start to now have a collection of different assets. So you might say, but Ross, this isn't going to give us a lot of content. This isn't going to give us great content. The quality is not going to be there. It's not going to be good. In fact, if that was the case, then why are there YouTube channels with over 230 some thousand subscribers just looking at AI visuals? Or YouTube channels that focus on historic stories with comments from real people that is watching a video that is AI generated, talking about how this is so excellent and that it is so informative. You need to challenge your beliefs, right? You need to challenge your beliefs around what does and what doesn't work. This is the approach that is resonating with folks, and whether you like it or not, this is the reality, right? If your subreddit isn't already owned by someone, this is the script, right? You literally can steal this script that I have done time and time again successfully and just say, hey, do you happen to work at this company? I saw you were running the subreddit. If not, I recently started working with Brand and would love to understand if you'd be open to having a dialogue around handing over mod duties to someone at the company or allowing for a co-mod situation. Steal this script if somebody already owns your subreddit, right? Reach out to them and they'll say, hey, I used to work for them, no longer in the association. I can add you as a co-mod right now. That quick, that easy. Don't be afraid of Redditors. They get a bad rep, but some Redditors are a little wild, but most Redditors have normal tendencies and will pass you over the torch, right? This is okay. And at the very least, what I want, if I haven't convinced you to think about having a brand presence, at the very least, this is something that you should all consider. Running remarketing ads. You know that ChatGPT, you know that Perplexity, I've given you the data. These sites are citing Reddit with their responses. And you might be thinking, okay, but I can't influence inside of the LLMs if they're not clicking and going to Reddit. Some people will go and do the due diligence to see what that Reddit thread was, and they'll start to scroll. Some people are finding these Reddit threads through Google. And if you're running remarketing ads in these subreddits, in these communities, you're now able to reach the people that you want to speak to. And that's powerful. You should also tap into tools like distribution.ai. I know that not everybody has time. So when you're thinking about how do we scale all of this, how do we write posts, how do we do all of these things, distribution.ai is a platform that I've built that I'm using, again, for my channels to help distribute stories at scale. Strongly recommend that you check it out. All right, I do want to wrap with a little bit of an insight around optimization because I do think it's more important than ever before. This is a checklist that I want you all to steal. When it comes to your content, if you have started to see the decoupling of impressions and clicks on your site, this is something that you can do within the next few months to reduce the content debt of old pieces. Go through and elevate your content with these types of ideas, these concepts, and these stories to take your content from mediocre to great, and it's more likely to be able to rank in the SERP. I do believe that we are going through a modern age of GEO, generative engine optimization. And I do think that the future of discovery is going to look a lot different, where you'll be able to go to an LLM and say, find me the best price for lower bowl Philadelphia Eagles season tickets. And it's going to do that entire search on your behalf. It's going to go and find the answers to the questions for you. It's going to go to Reddit. It's going to look at some of the review sites too. It's going to take a collection of all of these things to tell you this is the ticket for you. But what's going to be very different is the fact that not only will it have memory to understand you, it's going to have access to your credit card to actually swipe and actually do the transaction. This is the shift that we are going through. This is the shift that all of us need to recognize is in front of us. So we can keep going back to the old way. Create, don't experiment, don't run your own tests, don't try to use Reddit or YouTube because you're a little bit nervous and afraid. You don't have to do any of that. But here's what I want you to really remember. As you go ahead, instead of feeling overwhelmed, recognize that it is important now more than ever before to create ridiculously valuable content. I don't care if it's on Reddit. I don't care if it's on a blog. I don't care if it's on LinkedIn, YouTube, Quora, Facebook, TikTok, Snapchat. I don't care. Do the research to understand where your audience is. Create ridiculously valuable content on those channels, on those platforms. It's educational, engaging, entertaining, and empowering, and then distribute that content forever. That's the playbook. That's the methodology, and that is how you win. And I hope today that this framework right here is something that you can print off, that you can use, that you can rinse and repeat time and time again when you are making decisions around Reddit, around review sites, about all of the other platforms. And that if this framework can stick with you longer than bubblegum, then I have done my job today. Thank you all so much. Really appreciate it. Happy to dive into any questions that you might have.
Yeah, totally love that for sure. Just a reminder, I am going to show a few AirOps workflows here on how it connects to Reddit, and you can get access to it. We are going to take some questions here in a second, but email us at growth@airops.com to get one of our exclusive packages to help you appear and thrive in AI search, including a prioritization dashboard with Reddit Insights. So we are going to jump into questions, but let me show this first. So one of the things that Ross was showing was YouTube and all the different LLMs. And one of the things that we have at AirOps is an insights dashboard to help you see where your brand is appearing. So for example, this one is for the company ThoughtSpot, and they have about a 27% brand visibility across the companies. But you're like, oh, great. How do I improve that? So I go over here to queries. And one of the queries that is standing out is what is best big data analytics solutions for businesses? And so at AirOps, you can look at see how you're appearing in LLMs, but then you can start to take action on queries just like this. So I got this because I went over to our community dashboard, saw all of the aspects and Reddit threads and subreddits for where ThoughtSpot could have a presence. So for example, this one right here talks about small businesses, and we go over here and notice that their competitor is showing there. Their target query is right here. So that's the one I pulled up earlier. And I believe that's the same query right there. So my next step is I'm going to start to create content to potentially appear in there. And AirOps gives you options to be able to do that. Because you have to use your own like API keys and such, I'm using a different URL here, but I can put that in, run our AEO Reddit engagement power step, and then I start to come up with some really great options. So here would be the original post. Here's the text for it. And then here's some potential responses that I could add in there. Again, you'll have to use your own brain, your own strategy, your own thoughts, your own point of view, and add value, just like Ross said. But this begins to get you like a first step to being able to respond in Reddit. So here are several different responses that you could choose from. And then like we talked about, you need to add value and your own perspective. So you would take this as your first draft and then be able to add it in there to Reddit. So we also have this report on third-party sources, how things like Reddit and review sites are influencing LLMs more and more. So part of what we had Ross on today was to talk about the importance of Reddit so you can start creating that content and engaging there to be able to appear in LLMs as well. So we are going to dive into some questions now. But if you are interested in that, feel free to drop us a line, growth@airops.com, put Reddit in the subject line, and we would be happy to get you started with that. Plus, we have some upcoming webinars, including one specifically around AirOps and Reddit, which is happening on Halloween this Friday. This is Connor from LegalZoom. He went through our cohort at AirOps and started building workflows in AirOps for LegalZoom, specifically targeted towards Reddit and their engagement there. So he's going to break this down on Friday. We will be dropping the link there in the chat here in a second. But yes, lots of tools to help you engage authentically within Reddit. All right, we are going to dive into some questions. Lots are coming into the chat right now. Ross, I allowed you to take a little bit of a break there, but are you ready to dive back in?
I am ready. I was trying to go through the chat and help everybody out, but let's do it.
Okay, great. Perfect. One question that came in from Carl a little bit previously was how you decide when to participate or not participate in a Reddit thread, even if it's high intent.
Ooh, good question. Hostility is the first piece. So is the Reddit thread very hostile towards your brand, your business? If so, there's definitely some internal discussions that you should have before you jump into it. Is it a PR risk? Is it a customer sensitive error issue? Those types of things. I encourage brands to go through an exercise up front around escalation and how you view the scale in which you're willing to respond. If somebody is just saying that they're uncertain about your product, then okay, that's fair game. You can chime in, be transparent, show them who you are, but those are opportunities. If it's something that's high risk, you're going to want to talk to PR, you're going to want to talk to your team about that problem. When you're making that decision though, around responding, you want to make sure that you're going in and saying, we're the best, we're the best, we're the best. Go in and be, again, a great community member and say, hey, as in full transparency, and I would literally start my sentence with that. In full transparency, so I know I have a bit of a dog in the fight, but I do believe that we're a good brand because X, Y, and Z. Here are some of our competitors that also do a pretty good job and that we've heard about or we've come across in the past. By doing that, people will not be angry. People will say that's okay. Now, not every business is going to allow for that type of comms, but that's the approach.
Love that. Yeah, I think that's really great to be upfront like that at the beginning. And then how do you build karma? And karma is authority essentially on Reddit. How do you do that without looking like you're trying to farm it?
Yeah, so in the first 30 days of an account, you need to warm it up. And when we talk about warming up an account, we're talking about trying to build more karma. And you don't build karma by dropping a bunch of links to your blog posts, to resources, to webinars, to things like that, because that's selfish. So you need to be selfless for the first 30 days where you're truly just helping people. Some of the threads that you chime in on might have nothing to do with a business decision. Some of the threads might be high level where they're asking some questions that are just fun and light. Those are the types of things you want to engage in on the early stages to get that karma, because the goal is to get upvotes. So if you can add value to the community, you'll get the upvotes, which will translate into good karma.
Love that. That's a really good perspective. And then if you invest all this time, you create all the content for Reddit, like how should we think about success there? Is it number of comments? Is it upvotes? Is it just like the number of Reddit posts and threads that we're participating in? What are some suggestions that you have around that?
Yeah, so the most important metrics depend on the business. A lot of partners are looking to measure their share of voice on Reddit. So we're monitoring and tracking the share of voice of the brand on Reddit and how frequent their conversations, and we're monitoring that. Some brands are measuring how often are you seeing referral traffic from reddit.com as a total holistic site. Some brands are looking to track how much organic traffic is going to the threads that are on reddit.com that are relevant to us, where we're positively mentioned, to give them a sense of the value of the visitors on Reddit. Another metric that has been interesting is the number of citations to Reddit threads that you have influenced or commented on. So if you are seeing that you are capturing positively the threads that are influencing the LLMs and it's content that you've either produced yourself or that others have created and you commented on, and your comment is being cited in the LLMs, then tracking that gives you the ability to know that your Reddit activity is influencing the LLMs, and then you can do some prompt value associated with how often are prompts being used to measure the impact that you're having on the business. The final thing, which is closest to the bottom line for B2B brands, would be asking in that prompt, like in the actual form, how did you hear about us, and trying to actually associate revenue and deals directly to Reddit.
Yeah, love that. And the dashboard I just showed at AirOps really helps you see how much of that influence that you're having within the LLMs, along with those workflows that you can use there. One question I think you answered in the chat, but that also came in was, should you be responding from like your slash brand account or your slash like brand user? Is there any distinction there?
Yeah, I love the brand user account as being the primary account on Reddit, because when people communicate with each other, they want to communicate with a human. They don't want to communicate with a brand. As much as brands wish that people wanted to talk to them, they really don't. They want to know that they're talking to a human who works at that brand. So show up with that personified account, and it's more likely to come off positive.
Love that. Another question that came in through the Q&A was, I think this is something that we're all facing. How do we get leadership on board to maybe invest in Reddit because of maybe just some of the stereotypes that people have around Reddit? There's a lot of hesitancy and concerns. They may be afraid that you get banned or something like that. Any tips for addressing leadership about why Reddit is an important channel?
I think it's very important to do research upfront to validate whether or not Reddit makes sense for you. I think you need to do the research to understand if Reddit is negatively influencing your pipeline and your deals and your revenue. And if that is the case, it should become a very easy conversation with leadership, because you can show them the data that suggests, hey, Reddit is showing up as a cited source. And you use, again, AirOps to better understand like how often is Reddit being cited in the LLMs. And then you can say for bottom of funnel prompts, it's showing up more frequently. And that's killing our deals because it's negative. Okay, maybe we need to do something about that by being more active. Or you show them how there's a thread that is right in the SERP with your brand query that is hurting deals. So to me, it starts with research upfront. I don't want anybody to leave here thinking everyone needs to be on Reddit. Everyone here should be on Reddit. I don't want you to have that takeaway. I want you to have the takeaway to do research about the channels that are influencing buyer decisions. If it's review sites, great. If it's Reddit, great. If it's LinkedIn, great. If it's blogs, great. Do the research instead of allowing playbooks from 2009 to guide your strategy in 2026.
That is a very good distinction because you need to do the research to make sure Reddit is appearing in the queries that you're looking for, but then that you want to appear in. But then two, Reddit is a huge review site for a lot of these like versus comparison type content that you may need to appear in. And you definitely touched on that earlier, but that's something to remember as you think about your Reddit strategy. Craig has a really good, I think, tactical question here. So many great Reddit threads are maybe fit your brand, but they could be closed off to comments.
Yeah.
How do you go about like handling those to help influence the LLMs?
Yeah, once a thread is closed, it's dead in the water. You can't really bring it back to life unless you become friends with the mod, and that's a long game, and I wouldn't recommend it. I think you have to focus on today and tomorrow. You can start to invest today to create the threads that will rank and be closed in the future. And that's the opportunity. The opportunity exists to be present on Reddit, to run ads on Reddit, to encourage your users to leave reviews on Reddit. Instead of always saying, leave us a review on this review site, maybe you start asking for reviews on Reddit. And maybe that leads to more content on Reddit positively speaking about your brand. And those become the threads that influence your buyers. It's less about going into these closed subreddits. It's more about going in and actually focusing on where the ball is going and trying to create and inspire those threads as a part of your initiative. And you can create some too, right? This is also in your circle of control. You can produce these assets yourself and have them live on your own subreddit.
So like you could create your own thread underneath your brand account.
Exactly. Create it under your branded user account where you're creating this content. For example, if you know that your brand is always compared to a competitor, instead of writing that piece on your blog, create that on your subreddit. Create a comparison page the same way you would on your blog, but on your owned subreddit. And then as that subreddit grows and it starts to be indexed by the LLMs and it starts to be indexed by Google, you're more likely to have that show up in the SERP.
Yeah, I like that both and play there. That's really important, I think, for your blog and Reddit there.
Yeah.
We are wrapping up here. I did have one other question that I think is good from Emily. She said, what brands are you currently seeing utilizing Reddit with great success?
So Monarch Money does a great job with it. Bitly is doing a great job with it. Sonos, Sonos, is doing a great job on Reddit. Tideo, Tideo is doing well. Twilio is also doing well.
Yep.
I'm a big fan of what HubSpot is doing well on there. SEMrush, a lot of marketing brands. There's like insurance companies. There's one called Next Insurance. They're doing a good job. There's a lot of different brands that are doing Reddit and doing it well, but it's still early for all of you. Like a lot of marketers don't really realize how early it is. And I know some of us have been on Reddit for 12 years, but Reddit is now the front page of the internet in a meaningful way. So I think it's definitely time for more brands to spend time on it. From a brand user account, Keith from Sonos is what I would recommend everyone check out. He's one of the like OGs in the Reddit world. He's doing a great job with that account as well.
Yeah. Great suggestions across multiple different industries. So that was a perfect response. And we are talking with Connor from LegalZoom on Friday, who will be sharing how he's appearing on Reddit. Huge brand as well. Ross, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate your time. Here's where they can find you. You're on LinkedIn, you're on Twitter. Definitely check out Foundation Inc. Anything else that you want to add there?
I'm easy to find, folks. If you have any questions, hit me up. I try to be as accessible as possible. Always happy to connect. Just in the connection request on LinkedIn, just say that you heard me on the AirOps webinar, and I'd be happy to connect. And Josh, AirOps team, thank you for having me. And thank you for educating and adding value to the community. I just love seeing marketers win. So thank you for doing it.
Yeah, man. Appreciate that. We will see everybody next time. Have a good day.